All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Oh, and hello all. It's a big Friday show. We are live. Yes, indeed. It's such an exciting moment to have this big finish to the week on a Friday. All kinds of stuff going on in Washington and just outside of Washington. As you know, the raiding of the home of John Bolton. It's sort of the... kind of the authoritarian flex of the morning. And we'll also talk about the takeover of D.C. by Donald Trump that I would suggest is sort of the authoritarian flex of the week. And the call on the part of Donald Trump for mail-in ballots to go away. Of course, he can't do that by executive order, but if history's a guide, many of the red state governors and legislators may follow his lead and do that, which would, of course, have its own sort of voter suppression associated with that. So we'll get into that in a big way with Nathan Taylor. I welcome Kim, who is
Kim, how are you?
My stalwart watcher of all things that are happening. And Albert is here, too.
Albert, thank you.
He is also, in his own way, he's a stalwart. By his own admission, it's sort of his credo. He salutes mediocrity, is what I would say. Yeah. He always feels that he's just coming in. What is your motto, Albert?
Set the bar low so you can reach that bar, you know. You set the bar too high, you can't make it every day, so.
This is the Born to Peacefully Resist shirt. There's another one at our merch site, getmarkmerch.com. I said there's another one. The one I was wearing yesterday had the sunshine.
Sun.
I like this one too, the Earth. You can find it there on our. Oh yeah, that was the one I had on yesterday. I really like these shirts. I think you really find them groovy. Also,
it looks bigger. The logo looks bigger on you than it does on the picture.
It does, and I think Courtney has actually redesigned it to be slightly smaller, but I like it big. But
I do too. I think it's cool.
I don't know. She's you know, has a design mind and an artistic mind, and so is always seeing how things can be tweaked or whatever. You can get these things at getmarkmerch.com. There's a bunch of other stuff too that sort of is this season of peaceful protest, and then you can just rep the show on your head, on your hand. In your hand, I should say.
On your feet.
On your feet with the socks that are the runaway hit of the summer. The Mark Thompson Show socks.
When you wear those, you have a little pep in your step, like a little spring, you know?
You do.
What?
From the bottom of your feet to the tippy top of your head. The bucket hat is very popular too. So anyway, check it out. You can find that all at getmarkmerch.com and also under YouTube. I think some of the merch there is displayed, so you can kind of find what you need there. In addition to Nathan Taylor today, Michael Shure will be through for hour 2. We'll review this week in politics. And then finally, the Culture Blaster Michael Snyder comes through to give you a sense of what's happening in the world of film, in the world of streaming. Harry Magna with a $5 super chat. The super chats and super stickers are live during the show. We are crowd funded, so we always make a big deal out of the crowd. Oh, I have something on that. I got an angry comment from one of our regulars, and I'll share it with you. You know, we love angry comments. It's a very, I would say it's the mother's milk of our show.
I love it when you're angry.
Yeah. The Harry Magnan says with a $5 super chat, thanks, Albert. I thought you set the bar low so it didn't hurt when you fell off the bar stool. I get it.
Oh, yeah.
I get it. Yeah. Albert likes to throw him back a little bit, but the kids like Albert aren't drinking as much as they used to. I'm seeing
slow down a lot. Yeah.
All the statistics on drinking and kind of even the pot. Yeah. Even the weed.
We're just trying to pay our bills, Mark.
I see. Okay. Well, that's cool. I love my socks, says Dillette. Dillette came in heavy for some merch. Really came in heavy at the merch store, which is really cool. Socks are the merch with a soul, says Brian. Yeah. Socks are pretty cool, but I love these shirts. I don't know, man. And the other thing is the name of the show is on the back of the shirt, right across the back. So if you don't want to rep the show and you just want to rep the message for a moment or two, you can do it that way. But I love these shirts. Oh man, that's really hot.
I don't think she meant it in that context, but I'm taking it that way.
Yeah, very, very good. Mm-hmm. No weed drop? Yeah, what is that?
Where are my weed smokers at?
Yeah, where are they? They're not in the new generation. Yeah. How do you guys deal without medicating a little bit? Gil C says, Powell says he might cut rates. Why, if unemployment is up, slowly up, and everything else is up? Well, let me just say a little something about this because Gil mentioned it. I watched Powell's comments live, and it is true. The notion of raising, the notion of messing it all with interest rates and the notion of lowering rates as all the other indices rise is weird. He went through the inflationary. Did I send you something on this, Albert? I think I did, didn't I? He went through, here you go. He goes through just this little chunk. He goes through sort of the inflationary aspects of the economy right now with tariffs, and the general inflationary trend really seems to be up. And he's trying to choose his words carefully. But with the unemployment numbers as they are, the inflationary numbers as they are, it is weird, and it could easily spur inflation in a big way if you were to lower rates. Here is him. This is Jerome Powell in just a couple, like an hour.
Clearly visible. We expect those effects to accumulate over coming months with high uncertainty about both timing and amounts. The question that matters for monetary policy is whether these price increases are likely to materially raise the risk of an ongoing inflation problem. A reasonable base case is that the effects will be relatively short-lived, a one-time shift in the price level. Of course, one time does not mean all at once. It will continue to take time for tariff increases to work their way through supply chains and distribution networks. Moreover, tariff rates continue to evolve, potentially prolonging the adjustment process.
So that's just one
thing. It's also
thing.
possible, however, that
it mentions tariff. By the way, I'll ding this when someone uses the word "moreover" in speech. I understand why it exists when you're writing, but when you use it in conversation, moreover, I want to say that it's just it's dingable, which is, if you're new to the show, not a bad thing, just a thing. I think you're seeing the Fed responding to pressure from the executive. It's something that typically doesn't happen, but Trump is such a bully. And you've seen what he did, and this is the point. You've seen what he did with somebody else who's on the reserve board, and you've seen what he's done, sort of opening up a blowtorch on those who disagree and don't fall in line and don't do what he asks. He openly calls them out. He's turned his Justice Department on them. You've seen what happens with John Bolton this morning, where he's faced with FBI agents at his home and office looking for classified documents, which is just the ultimate irony, as this administration is headed by a guy who took more classified, top secret, Pentagon-related, defense-related documents than any other president or executive in history. So I think under the threat of that, Powell may be blinking. We'll see. Let Trump have what he wants, and when inflation surges, Trump will get the blame. I think reduce them a half point to see what happens and revisit it next month, says Inlays. Yeah. I mean, there is this sense that, great, when the economy tanks, it'll be on Trump. You don't want the economy to tank. I don't know what you're thinking. It's sort of like, well, when the house burns down, they'll know they shouldn't have been playing with that fire. You don't want the house to burn down.
No.
Cranky Charcoal says he wants to bring 30-year bond yields down. It was too close to 5%. He's dragging it out so that the disaster is the next guy's problem. Yeah. Okay. This gets in the bond yields definitely are an issue. They build a kind of deficit that will be baked into American life for decades to come, and they do indicate that the economy is not in great shape. I can't respond to all these messages and get to, and so you can continue to put them up there, but I can't respond to all of them. I've got Nathan to get to, and I still wanted to quickly visit the fact that John Bolton's Maryland home, part of a classified records probe, they say, related to his book. They feel that he may have retained classified documents. This is what they're saying, all right? He served 17 months, I'll remind you, as the National Security Advisor in Donald Trump's first term. And I don't like John Bolton, okay? I don't like much at all about John Bolton. He, I think, is misguided on geopolitics. He knows a lot, and he'll be the first person to tell you he knows a lot. And the only thing I will say is that, and by the way, being the first person to tell you know a lot, I don't mind. I mean, an ego or an arrogance, okay, whatever. I mean, if somebody's competent, but I think Bolton's view of the world, he has a hawkish view of the Middle East. He has a hawkish view of, I think, of geopolitics generally. He has sort of an, this hegemonic notion about America that we should just, we should run the world. But what I will give him credit for, having said that, is he had the courage, the ongoing courage to call out what he saw in the last administration. I mean, I'm talking about the Trump administration. He served in the last Trump administration, and he not only had the courage to talk about it, but he wrote a book about it, and it's alarming. I mean, what he points to in his book is a president who is clueless, who does none of the homework. I mean, zero of anything. He's just sort of like a guy, and as Bolton paints the picture, who's sort of like, okay, I'm ready for my close-up. Where do I go? Where's my presentation today? Where's my announcement today? And so I'll give him credit for having that courage. And now the Trump administration will give him the blame for having that courage. FBI agents searching his Bethesda, Maryland home. They say it's in connection with a probe about his handling of classified records. Bolton said that he was unaware of the FBI search. And FBI agents were also spotted entering the Washington, D.C. building where Bolton keeps an office. The other thing I'll just note on this, and then obviously this is a developing story, when Bolton wrote that book that I was talking about, he got clearance from the government on information and details that would appear in the book. So the notion somehow that he revealed secret, classified, or otherwise sensitive information in his book, that's patently absurd, given the fact that the government dry cleaned the text of anything that could be damaging. So that was done. This feels like straight up retribution, right? I mean, you don't have to be,
but Randy,
you don't need
right?
the CSI team to solve this case.
Randy says Trump said he knows nothing about Bolton's house getting raided this morning by the FBI, Mark. So,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's good enough.
Does anybody believe that?
Right, right. And I also want to, I'll get to the, by the way, Albert, you'll note, I'm going to forward this on to you. I don't know if you got it. Did you get something from Nathan? I think he's got some visuals. Mm-hmm. Oh, you got them? Okay, good. I don't need to forward it then. Then I can quickly turn my attention to D.C., and I just want to mention we'll get to Trump's presence in D.C. The funniest or absurd soundbite of the morning, I think, is you may have it, Albert. Let me just give him this real quick before I get to Nathan, and then I'll talk more about Trump's occupation of D.C. But the wildest thing said was what Trump says in this clip about, like, it was awful yesterday, and now D.C. is a paradise. Here you go.
A miracle what's happening. I mean, they can come up with fake numbers like the mayor is doing. Oh, no, it was going down for 20 years. You didn't live here. You know, have you been mugged? Okay. D.C. was a hellhole, and now it's safe. And in fact, I put out this morning, I said, I hate to say this because it doesn't sound very good, but there have been no murders in D.C. in the last week. That's the first time in anybody's memory that you haven't had a murder in a week. I
Okay,
think the
thank you.
mayor has to get on the
We'll talk
ball.
more about it, but you get that. Yeah, yesterday was a hellhole, and today it's a paradise. Just because I've changed it, I've saved another American city.
Yeah.
Yeah, really quite an extraordinary claim.
I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah,
In his speech to the guardsmen and the law enforcement officers last night, he also proclaimed himself to be the world's foremost living expert on grass.
I missed that.
Yeah.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Yeah.
No. I think he meant.
It's because he said he has golf courses all over the place, you see?
Yeah.
And so he said, I know more about grass than any human being anywhere in the world.
Well, you know what, Kim? How dare you disparage him in the grass category? He may actually have some cred.
Listen,
We might have found the one thing that he's really strong on.
I'm glad to know he's an expert on at least something. That's great.
B.A. Ware says this, which is so true. I made this point last week. Southeast D.C. is where all the crime is. Guess where all those law enforcement aren't? Southeast D.C. Yeah. We'll get more into that later, but I just wanted to note it. And again, only I can save you. And look at it. I saved you in just a week. That's sort of a familiar Trump flex. The other thing I'll just say now, in case you miss comments later, is that much of what's happening in Washington, D.C. now with ICE agents and with ATF, and he's called in DEA, all of these different agents that can be marshaled. They're sort of newer agencies that can be marshaled under this president. There are fewer restrictions, if you want to think of it that way, as there are on the military. They're making a lot of immigration busts. That's what the majority of these things have been about, immigration busts. So we'll continue.
The Mark Thompson Show.
This guy is amazing in his command of statistics related to the election, and he's uncovered, I'll say, irregularities, but I also would say that it never ceases to amaze how, as you peel back the layers of the onion, there are more and more irregularities and potential illegalities, and all of these indications that there could be wrongdoing on many levels when it comes to the election. Earlier this week, you heard Donald Trump call out mail-in voting as filled with fraud. He said that Vladimir Putin told him that mail-in voting is the problem in America. Mail-in voting is where all the fraud is, and America is the only country that uses mail-in voting. Well, of course, many countries use mail-in voting, and it's also very hard to find fraud in the mail-in part of American voting. When it comes to fraud, when it comes to irregularities, as I say, it is great to bring him in from Election Truth Alliance. How about it for Nathan Taylor, everybody?
Hello. Thanks again for having me.
It's great to see you. I will do what I typically do, which is I step back because you have generally a presentation which is punctuated by visuals, and you run the visuals, but I will do a little Q&A along the way to kind of just follow up on certain things. I know you do want to address this mail-in issue today.
Yes. So we did prepare a presentation talking about mail-in. We did pull statistics for mail-in for the 2024 presidential election, did some statistical analysis. And hopefully we can have a bit more of a Q&A this time. I tried to limit our PowerPoint more than I normally do. So I did predict some questions that you may have, and I've already kind of gotten ahead of those in the PowerPoint. So I'd love to kind of jump in.
Great. Let's rock it, and we'll figure out where we go as we do it.
All right. So let's see if we can pull this up. There is a little PDF/PowerPoint we made for you. Here it is. And so a little bit of background for us. I think this is I can't remember how many times I've had the pleasure of being here kind of talking about these concerns as we go forward. But, my name is Nathan, Election Truth Alliance. We're doing statistical analysis of elections. And in the U.S., that isn't well received and it isn't well known yet. And that's kind of what our work is doing, is we're saying, hey, we can apply statistics to elections. It's been done in European elections and African elections. And our background, we are a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization, recently formed just after the 24 election. And we are comprised of data scientists, and statisticians, and all kinds of different backgrounds. I want to highlight, I do talk about the data. I do present the data. I am the executive director of public engagement, but I am not the only person who's sitting down and looking at this data. My background in statistics is limited compared to some of the volunteers I work with. One of our co-founders is, in my opinion, far more well-versed than I am. And he was kind of the first person to start looking at elections in this light. And then we all jumped aboard, jumped on the train. And so let's get into these questions. So,
and as you go, if they're graphs, I may have to describe them to people who are just listening. Just keep in mind, we have a lot of people who listen to the show on podcasts, Spotify, et cetera. So they sometimes don't see this presentation. They have to hear us kind of walk through it. So just keep that in mind.
Okay. Yeah. We'll make it very simple when we get to the visual parts. This is mostly just going to be talking. So you mentioned in 2024 some recent quotes about mail-in not being secure. Is that right?
That's right. I mean, the idea is, that's the accusation anyway, yes.
And so we actually have pulled similar quotes going back to 2024, talking in April of 2020 about how mail-ins are dangerous for the country. They're being used to rig elections, and they're full of fraud. So that's not a new talking point. We've seen this talking point held up a few times now. And then, as you said, in 2024, 2025, just recently, mail-in is being used to rig elections. It is voter fraud. And there was a specific quote thrown in, not only about mail-in, but also talking about seriously controversial voting machines. So we've built our analysis in this PowerPoint. We're going to show you, we've looked at mail-in voting for the 2024 election statistically. We looked at the other types of voting as well. And then we've actually started looking at these voting systems. And we're going to say, hey, can we trust mail-in voting? That's the verdict we'll have by the end of this little PowerPoint. We'll say, hey, what does the math tell us? What does the data tell us?
Great.
So first and foremost, I think you've already talked about it a little bit, but there was another quote that said, no one uses mail-in voting anymore. That's not true. I think over at least 34, I think as of last count, it was up to 120 different countries use mail-in voting in some variety. Canada, I believe Australia. And what they're doing is, most of them absentee mail-in. A lot of it is military or voters who can't show up in person. 30% of all ballots cast in 2024 were mail-in, and 42 was mail-in in 2020. So I think that's very interesting that we do use mail-in across the world. Specifically, our military uses mail-in. And as of right now, I think 75% of the 1.4 million active duty service members can cast their ballots by mail. So losing mail-in would heavily impact our service members' abilities to vote. And as we said, almost half of our votes, around a third right now, is mail-in a traditional election.
Just to underscore one thing there, in this stat, 30% of all ballots cast in the last presidential election, 2024, 30% were mail-in, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
and
just want to make sure. So it's a third of the country votes by mail.
Yes. And some states are completely mail-in, like Washington and Oregon. Right. I think that's important, is as we go forward and we start looking at the security around how do we actually run mail-in in the U.S. state to state. And I think what's important is we did see that decrease where some of the most mail-in ballots cast were in 2020, likely because of COVID. And that was a heavy jump. And we see that reflected when we go back and look at the data. But we're not going to talk too much about 2020 in this. We're just going to focus on 2024 mail-in statistics. Okay. Perfect. So, yeah, any questions here? We'll actually show you a little bit of the math.
Great. Let's go ahead.
Okay. I'm going to come back to these, but I did want to touch on the systems and the machines we use and some of the quotes that came up. But we do use two major types: electronic voting systems and then tabulation machines. We'll come back to that. First, let's show you what everyone loves. They love our graphs, and I'll have to have you explain this. I think you have seen these a few times now.
I think these are some of the most compelling graphs you have, actually. So you're right. Yeah.
Well, so what these are, we're calling these down ballot analysis. It's drop-off votes. And what it is on the left, I believe we have, I'll see if I can make it bigger on my end so we can go into detail. But we have here mail-in on the left for 2024. And this is Pennsylvania to start. We're going to look at Pennsylvania. We're going to look North Carolina. And we just recently released our North Carolina analysis, by the way. So that's up on our website, electiontruthealliance.org. All of North Carolina was analyzed, and we actually put our report up on the website for you. So on the left is mail-in. On the right is precinct voting data, so like election day. And the way you read these graphs, for those viewers at home, we're showing a graph with a few lines on it. And what these lines are is each county has a red and a blue line. And there is a 0% mark. And what that is this is an analysis of the presidential race versus a down ballot race. I believe in this case, this is the Senate race for Pennsylvania. And what we're doing is we're showing 0% is the amount of votes that the down ballot race got.
So down ballot, again, just means that Senate race would be down ballot. It's not for the president. Go ahead.
Exactly. And so what we've done is if you are above the 0% line, it's the president, you got more votes than that down ballot race, the senator, the superintendent, the governor, whatever it is you're analyzing. If you're below that 0%, per county in this case, you got less votes. And so on the left, what we're showing and what we're arguing is, statistically speaking, a more normal election when doing this analysis should look a bit chaotic. There should be some counties where you're getting more and you're getting less votes as the president, but it shouldn't be consistent. It should be pretty chaotic. And in this case, we're finding the average is somewhere between 1% and 3%. In places where we're not seeing any concerns of manipulation, 1% to 3% for the president, that's how many more votes they normally get. So in your words here on the left, how does mail-in look, statistically speaking? Is it chaotic? Is it normal? What are we seeing?
So with this same aspect that you just described, where you want that sort of mix, it looks to me like you've got that mix with mail-in. That is to say what you're describing, which is the lines are a mix, both above and below the center line, without any drop-off rates that you suggest in prior presentations.
Yeah, it's chaos. And we argue this is more normal. Like, human voting behavior is sometimes chaotic. It's hard for multiple counties to all specifically vote in lockstep. And on the right, that is what we're starting to highlight, is we're showing in Philadelphia, in this case, in Pennsylvania as a whole, for the 2024 presidential election, mail-in looks far more normal and chaotic statistically for our drop-off, our down ballot analysis. But we start to see problems in election day in Pennsylvania. And specifically, we are seeing a huge underperformance all across multiple counties in Pennsylvania that we are worried about, and we'll show it with North Carolina a bit more strongly. We're worried that this level of consistency from county to county could potentially be vote manipulation. And we highlight that as we get into the statistics. And one effect that could create this, where you're seeing multiple counties, and for those of you at home, what we're showing that on election day in Pennsylvania for the 24 election, the Republican president is almost always overperforming. I think in this case, always overperforming the down ballot candidate. But then the Democrats, the presidential Democrat, is pretty consistently underperforming, and in such a way that we are worried it could be an indication of vote switching. And you take votes from one candidate, give to the other, their vote amount goes down, they drop below the down ballot, the other candidate goes aggressively above. And so we've shown this again in 2024, North Carolina. This is the superintendent. This is their mail-in, by the way. And it's the same normal chaos, not a lot
when
of...
you say chaos, it's like a mix, right?
It's a mix.
I mean, yeah.
And then,
so there's no consistent feature of the sort that you just described, where top of ticket gets the vote, but there's no down ballot vote for it. So this is as you say, sort of a normal distribution is what we're looking at.
yeah, and what you would call this, and what this is normally labeled, is you would, in this case, if there's a vote cast for the down ballot candidate, you'd call this, I think, ticket switching, right? Where you would vote Democrat down ballot, and then you would vote for a different party at the top of the ticket. Maybe you'd be switching the top of the ticket. The problem is, statistically speaking, when you look at how often does that happen, that's a really small amount of the votes normally. In a normal free and fair election, a lot of people are pretty hardcore for their parties, and you wouldn't expect to see a majority of the vote be that switching at the top of the ticket. And that is what we're seeing in North Carolina, in Pennsylvania, in some of these other swing states. And here's the example as well. So we showed absentee, mail-in looks statistically normal, chaotic, random. Election day, and we're going to show you early voting after this, but election day, which is in North Carolina, I think 19.8% of the votes cast in North Carolina were on election day. I think closer to less than 6% or so was mail-in North Carolina. So this is a solid chunk of the votes here, and we are seeing that pretty consistent underperformance for Harris across multiple counties. There's 100 counties in North Carolina, by the way. So we're just flagging that this is statistically weird, and if this is caused by vote manipulation, as we'll show you in some of our follow-up data, can we visualize this a bit better? And then
so
here's
you're saying it's statistically weird because you'd expect that she wouldn't be underperforming across the board in this way. Again, using past elections and distribution of votes as our baseline.
right. And what's even interesting is we did a average of multiple down ballots in North Carolina. So we said, let's look at the top 2, 3, 4, or 5 down ballot Democrats that ran in North Carolina. And let's see, how do they compare statistically to Harris as well? So it's not just one race. And that's the same thing we're seeing here in early voting, is we're seeing all across the board compared to all of these down ballot candidates that won their races in North Carolina. We're seeing that Harris is always getting less votes than they are. And as we said, on its own, the consistency flags for vote manipulation. And we've taken this and we ran with it a bit more. And that's where we've started putting out these reports about Pennsylvania and North Carolina, where we looked at the counties themselves. We looked at the precinct voting data that we got from the counties. And so we're going to run through those real quick, and then we'll circle back to talking about some of the machines and some of the other concerns. So we're going to show you a few things. We're going to focus on heat maps for this, but we have multiple ways of statistically looking at elections. These types of analysis are based off the work of known statisticians and election and fraud experts such as Roman Udot and Peter Klimek and Dr. Walter Mebane, who's in the US as well. And so we're just going to show you some of these analysis. We talked about like what a more normal distribution looks like. And in this case, I like the heat maps because it's the easiest way to show you and we can explain it to people watching. But we have far more than this on our website for North Carolina and Pennsylvania if you want to go read the actual reports themselves. But all we're going to show is we're going to show the heat maps are a way to potentially visualize election fraud or vote manipulation. And in this case, we use Russia in 2011 and 2012 as examples. A more normal and free election on a heat map, as you said, what does a normal distribution look like? For heat maps, it should look more like a circle. And that's all of the precincts. And in this case, we like to show Russia in 2011, 2012 as having that comet trail up and to the right. Instead of being a more perfect circle, they're having the comet trail up and to the right, which is a symptom of vote manipulation, in this case, ballot stuffing. And then Uganda has almost the opposite effect. Instead of it being a comet trail, we see a majority of precincts or polling locations are kind of pushed up to the top right. And then we actually see some voting at 100% turnout, which in a normal election is rare, very rare. To see that consistently across Russia and Uganda is a red flag that they were stuffing so much that they may have exceeded the amount of turnout possible. Any questions or anything on this before we jump into kind of some of the visuals?
No, I think this is interesting. And it's not some kind of it's not a visual display that we're used to seeing. Although, I mean, if you've watched this show and you've watched Election Truth Alliance on the website, you're familiar with it. But otherwise, it's I think it's a really interesting way to look at an obvious way there could be vote stuffing, as you say.
So heat maps in this case can actually detect two types of vote manipulation. Ballot stuffing is one, digital or physical, and then vote switching, which is a little bit harder to do. And I'll show you examples of those actually in the 2024 presidential election. So this is my baseline. This is Erie County for their mail-in. And really what you're going to find here is bottom line up front. When we're looking at mail-in across the U.S. and some of these swing states that are controversial, we're finding that mail-in seems to be more statistically normal a majority of the time. Not always. There are some outliers, but a majority of the time, mail-in looks more normal. It looks more like what we would expect a free and fair election to look like. And that's important. Election day and or early voting, depending on states, generally does not in some of these swing states. And so Erie County, we're showing this for their mail-in, and then we're going to show you their election day. And we're going to talk and we're going to explain what this looks like. So mail-in, as we've shown, it looks more like what we're arguing is free and fair. It's a circle of votes. And the color map just shows that circle for Erie County for mail-in. Now, how does Erie County for Election Day look?
I can't see it on my monitor. Help me. It's so small. I apologize.
Yeah, I can't make it any bigger for you.
No. It's the feed. The video feed that I have is just so small. I'm sorry. Go ahead and fill in the blanks for me. So
for Election Day, for Erie County, we're seeing that instead of that circle, we're seeing kind of a stretching up and to the right. It's not dissimilar from Russia, but it's unique in a few ways. As we saw in Russia on the right here in 2011, 2012, they got that comet trail where a majority of the votes are centered somewhere more normal, and then you're seeing a stretching up and to the right. In Erie County, instead of kind of seeing that comet trail, we're seeing a majority of these precincts are stretching up and to the right. And we did label this for you here. This is a potential indication of not only vote stuffing, and we're worried that this could be digital in nature, meaning you're digitally voting for people who don't vote, or you're digitally voting for people who may not exist. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Or this could be an indication of doing a mix of deleting votes and changing and switching things around. Either way, this is mirroring vote manipulation as documented in European elections, such as Russia and such as Uganda.
Right.
And then,
you can, and that's why they're side by side. You can see that the shape of things is the same.
Okay. And then we'll run through the rest here. Shasta County,
by the way,
California.
just to be clear, though, that's in-person balloting is what you're talking about?
Yes. So this is election day. This is people showing up to vote at the precinct level, casting their votes. And in Pennsylvania, a majority of our voting in the U.S. is hand-marked paper ballots. So that's what's important here is a majority of this is hand-marked paper ballots, whether it's mail-in, whether it's in person, but it's still getting counted by vote counting computers, tabulators all across the U.S. I think 99% of our votes are counted by tabulation machines. And we'll show you that right at the end here. But yeah, this is all in person. Okay. Now we're going to show you, we'll run through the rest. So we just have more examples of this. We're going to show you that we're going to look at mail-in, and we're going to look at election day or early voting. And how does it compare? Mail-in, California, Shasta County. Trump won this county, but it still statistically looks normal for mail-in voting. And it looks normal for all vote types. So we're just showing that as well. Mail-in looks the same as election day for Shasta County. It's that more circular distribution of votes. And then we're going to show you a little bit of North Carolina. We've not shown this yet. This is on our website now for our North Carolina report. But on the left is your mail-in again. It looks more normal. There's a little bit of stretching, a little bit of distortion, but overall more normal compared to election day and early voting. And what we're seeing is that election day and early voting in 2024 for North Carolina as a whole, but for Synth County specifically, we're seeing that in the middle here, which is election day, which is, I think, as we said, 20% of the votes. It's not showing indication of ballot stuffing, but we're seeing a stretch in the distribution, which could be caused by switching votes, taking votes from one candidate, giving to the other. And that could create that effect we're seeing in the drop-off. One candidate is underperforming because they're having votes taken from them and they fall below their down ballot parties. And then for early voting, what we're seeing is that indication of stuffing again with some other stuff mixed in. So it's that up and to the right. Instead of being a comet trail, it looks like a majority of the precincts as well are pretty stretched out here. And what's important, early voting is 73% of the votes in North Carolina. So even though mail-in looks statistically normal, mail-in is, what do we say? I think we said closer to 6%, 5 to 6% of the votes in North Carolina was mail-in. So even though mail-in looks statistically normal, it's so little of the votes that if there is manipulation, if there is potential vote manipulation of election day or early voting, that is where a majority of the votes are. Any questions here?
No, and implied there is that it would have a negligible effect on the outcome because it's only 6%.
Right. And in North Carolina's case, because it's so small, yes, it would have a limited effect that these votes are being counted correctly. Other states such as Washington, such as Oregon, such as such as California, where more of their votes, by the way, Washington and Oregon, I believe, are close to 100%, if not 100% mail-in only. California is a far higher amount, I think almost half. And so we're showing that if mail-in is more secure, statistically more normal, I'm interested to see how it has an impact, and we'll follow up with this type of data in the near future. We're going to look at how does mail-in compare from 2020 to 24, and what is the impact across the U.S. and how much of the vote in each state was mail-in. So I think that kind of summarizes the concerns. There's only one other thing, which we said, here's the caveat. Although mail-in looks more normal across the board, there are some indications that it could be cheated in some places. And here's Philadelphia. Here's their mail-in voting. And we're seeing just a little bit of an indication there could be some switching going on in mail-in. But as I said, far more normal. And then here's their election day as a comparison. It's far larger impact. Okay, so I'm going to go back and we're going to ask some questions, actually. And this is what's important. This is the elephant in the room, if you will, is why would mail-in be different than these other vote types? Do you have any thoughts on that before I kind of explain?
No, and I think we get down to questions about process. So I'm really excited to talk about process because that does speak to legitimacy. You know, what's involved in the process of looking at mail-in voting, of counting mail-in voting, of voting by mail. So let's get into that.
Yeah. So here's what's important is we asked this question right at the start. We said, how is mail-in ran compared to election day or early voting? And as you said, election day and early voting, they're in person. You show up at the precinct level and you vote in person, and your vote is cast at the precinct level. And then it gets sent up to the county in some ways, depending on how you do it. And we'll show some of the systems we use in the US. We'll go back. But mail-in is different. Mail-in is not in person, and it's counted at the county level, generally speaking. And in many of the places we've looked, they do it at the county level. And so you'll either register to vote by mail, and then they'll send you, your mail-in vote, your ballot. You'll mark it. And here's what's very interesting is in 24, a lot of the states got more strict on how they conduct mail-in. It actually got more secure. They started requiring a few things. And in North Carolina, we made an example of this. One, you have to either have, a notary or two witnesses present when you cast your mail-in ballot, and they'll actually, co-sign your ballot. And then you have to include a photocopy of an ID, and that gets sent with your mail-in ballot to the county. And so they have not only, documentation of who you are, but witnesses saying, hey, this is the person who voted here. And I think that's very interesting when it comes to talking about election fraud in mail-in is, well, we're more strict in mail-in than we are in person, than we are in other types.
It's pretty hard to point to any fraud with that kind of process. I mean, you can point to other problems with that, like just the difficulty factor in getting what is required to vote by mail in North Carolina. But I mean, it's no wonder that the numbers of people who vote by mail is so small, given the bar that you have to clear. Stricter. It's just easier to vote in person, probably, at least in terms of the documentation and the process.
Yeah. And so we'll talk a little bit about how do they actually do it. We're finding that in North Carolina and in Pennsylvania, they use a different type of tabulation system, vote counting computer at the county level for mail-in. Generally, it's a different model or different brand, and we'll go back and we'll talk about some of those models or brands. It may be the same company model, but a different version of the counting systems. And I think that's what's important is we're seeing that precinct voting systems, depending on, as I said, like 99% of our votes that we cast are counted by some type of tabulation machine. But the voting computers or the voting machines are different. And we'll talk about that. So we'll go back and we'll show you. But to sum this up, we're seeing that in North Carolina alone, their mail-in process is more strict than in-person voting. They also have a way of tracking their ballots through ballot tracks. So there's an extra step of auditing in this process. And we think what's important is that it's harder to manipulate mail-in if there's a strong chain of custody. That's because you know how many votes you received by mail and how many votes you should get when you do your counting and your tabulation. And you're going to get some red flags raised if you get 600 mail-in ballots and you get a significant less or significant more of those. That, like the numbers don't add up. So that's the main thing we're seeing is we think that this may have an impact on why mail-in looks more normal. You're counting it in a different way. It's at the county level. It's more secure. And there's a stronger paper trail to potentially red flag any anomalies. So now we're going to go back and we'll kind of wrap it up here. Sorry, let me jump through all my points. We're going to wrap it up with this. And remember that quote we said, where they said mail-in was a concern. And this is it here at the bottom here. This is a quote from a certain person that said they're going to lead a movement to get rid of mail-in ballots. And while we're at it, We're going to get rid of these highly inaccurate and expensive, seriously controversial voting machines. Now I'm going to ask you a question, and this is your opinion. What do you think is being spoken about when you talk about voting machines?
I assume the very mechanism that records votes. Am I wrong?
In this case, we are worried that voting machine is not the count of the machines, but it is in fact the electronic voting machines that people cast their votes on.
Oh, that's what I meant. Yeah. No, I meant that. You're right. I said counting.
No.
I mean, that
it's okay.
When you cast your vote on a machine, that's the machine. You're casting it that way. Right.
And we highlight this because this is still very confusing for a lot of people. Is we're not getting explained to us really how our systems work in a lot of places. You only really know how your county does it because you only vote at your county. And here's what's important. There's two distinctions or two types of systems that we're actually talking about. Electronic voting machines, these are what's used to cast your votes. These are very popular in Nevada and some other states that use almost specifically these types of systems. And they
produce, as noted here, a paper trail, right? You can go back and you can hand count what was voted on the machine.
Yes, you can. And here's what's important, though, is only 18 to 23% of the votes cast in the 24 election were cast by voting machines. And there's two types that we're going to talk about. And those are the DREs, which is what's used in Nevada, is like machines you go up to and you vote. It's almost like a touchscreen. And then they have a little paper trail that gets printed out, but it doesn't get scanned by anything. The vote gets sent off digitally. There's the other half, which is what's used pretty aggressively in Pennsylvania and these other places. These are ballot marking devices. And these are pretty common in the places that you do use these types of machines, where you'll go and you'll choose how you vote. It prints out a ballot, and then you go and that ballot gets scanned. So these are two different types of systems, but they both let you cast your votes in some specific ways. And here's what's important is 75 to 80% of the votes that were cast in 2024 were not cast on any of these systems. I think that's what's interesting, is if we're worried about these systems being compromised, that's not our concern. Our concern is not with these systems because this is so little of the vote, with some caveats. What we're concerned about, what the Election Truth Alliance is concerned about, is we are concerned about these systems. And these are the tabulation machines. Nearly 100% of the votes that were cast in 24 were counted by some type of system like this. We don't do hand counting in a majority of our places. Very few precincts in very few counties in the U.S. do any type of hand counting. I think that's what's important, is people don't realize this. When we talk about vote counting machines, this is what we're talking about. And even your physically hand-marked paper ballots get counted by these systems. Even your machine-marked paper ballots get counted by these systems. And as we spoke, there are generally scanners at the precinct level, and then there's different types of systems at the county level that do mail in. And we're finding that in Pennsylvania and North Carolina. And here's what's important, is we have started asking questions about these systems. Are they connected to the internet? Are there any vulnerabilities? And who runs and maintains these systems? And we're starting to find that some of the major systems used in the U.S. that span 70% of the U.S. And as I said, nearly 100% of votes are cast by these systems, are counted, Nearly 100% of votes are counted by these types of machines. And we're finding that 70% of the U.S. uses very specific models and brands that are starting to raise red flags for vulnerabilities that could allow you to manipulate votes. Any questions or statements?
Yeah, red flags related. We got to wrap up here in a second, but yeah, red flags related to the ownership, but the politics of ownership. That is to say, I mean, if you go back and look at these tabulation machines and voting machines, for that matter, you can see ownership related to some very strong GOP loyal companies. That is to say, sort of unapologetically repping GOP positions. I'm sure they try to also rep the neutrality of the mechanics going to these machines. But the reality is, if you really look back, and this goes back over the last decade, you find that these machines are populated by those who might have a political agenda. So is that what you mean when you talk about these machines related to ownership and related to connections and corporate connections?
So actually, a few things. Yes, 100% right that we have raised concerns saying who's actually running these systems, who's updating these systems and who's checking to make sure these systems are being run right. In Pennsylvania, for example, they have a vendor that there's really only two major vendors for these types of systems throughout the US. And both of them, as you said, have started to raise red flags for who do they actually, like, what is their process? Do they actually have the background and skill sets to check these systems, or is this just a rubber stamp? Is every update that goes into these systems just getting rubber stamped? And are there any vulnerabilities? And that's what we've started to investigate. And we're going to have more reports about this, but I can say this with confidence. We are finding that these systems across the board, generally speaking, do have cellular modems in them. 70% of the US does seem to have systems that may have cellular modems in them that they use to send the precinct level voting data to the county. That means they are connected to the internet. That means they could be vulnerable to manipulation. And if they were compromised, and as we're saying, 70% of the US uses these, we are seeing indication that they were compromised in the 24 election. And we are seeing indication with our statistical analysis that not only were they compromised, but they were used to manipulate votes that could have changed the outcome of the presidential election if scaled up at large. And that's what we're starting to find. And that is where, and we're done with this PowerPoint, I think, so we can take this off and we'll wrap up. But that's where we're going to talk about next steps, right? For the ETA, for viewers watching, what can we do next? So I'm curious, what can we do about this, right? As we've shown, statistically speaking, we're seeing mail-in looks more normal, but we're not seeing normality in early voting and election day. The reports the ETA started putting out when we look at the statistics show that Pennsylvania and North Carolina could have been impacted with vote manipulation at a scale that could have actually changed the presidential races in those states. And that's in our reports on our website.
That's pretty damning evidence you've actually put forward, I think, just to, create at minimum the cloud of suspicion, particularly Pennsylvania. I mean, my God, it seems demonstrably weird.
Yeah. And what we're wanting next in the next steps isn't anything crazy. We're asking, hey, we want to do some investigations. We want forensic audits. We want to do some hand counting. As we said, we didn't do hand counting sufficient in the 24 election. By default, our audits really weren't to the level we would argue is enough to change or detect vote manipulation. A lot of the time, our audits either only look at like 2%, really small amount of the votes. And we're finding concerns as we look at the audit practices across the US. They may not be sampling the places that are actually being manipulated sufficiently, so that it may not catch it. And I think what's important is as we go forward, we need people to actually be aware of these problems, to support getting investigations conducted. Because if this happened and the 24 election was manipulated and these systems were compromised across 70% of the US or more, those systems are still potentially compromised to this very day and will be compromised in the midterms as well if we don't do something about it.
I'd say that the threat that they'll be compromised even more severely is there. And it's interesting that, again, this is just my opinion, sort of with the fix in, you end up with the president saying, I want to get rid of mail-in ballots completely. They're not legitimate. The president of Russia told me they're not legitimate, as though he's the arbiter of legitimacy. But
well, he would have experience with elections, I would say, based on our analysis. Is Russia knows their elections well.
Sure. They don't even cheat well, though. If this was a cheat, it was a good cheat, the kind of cheat where it's just over the margin of error kind of number, which would have provoked an immediate recount, the threshold for an immediate recount. But it sort of leaves us in the area that we're in, which is, well, let's look at it. And you have people like yourself and Election Truth Alliance looking at the vote, but we're sort of cries in the night right now. Russia, it's kind of a North Korea model, which is, wow, we just won overwhelmingly. We won. I mean, it's just a much tougher sell, and so it's more clearly fraudulent.
I will say this, and this is kind of what we'll leave it at, is, as you said, we're kind of saying, hey, if this happened, what are we going to do about it? And I think as you're going to find as we go forward, we're not getting a lot of support from mainstream media about these concerns. We're not getting any support really from the Democrat Party, who could have been impacted by this. I think what's important is the question we get is, what are we going to do about it? And what is it going to take? I think what it's going to take is, we can talk about statistics all day, but at the end of the day, it's going to take more concrete evidence, more proof. It's going to take something more than this to launch those investigations and to get those investigations and those recounts and figure out, did this happen and how did they do it? And so that is what the ETA has stepped forward to do, is we've started putting together litigation that we're hoping to move forward with here in the near future, very near future. And we believe that this litigation may be that first step in showing, hey, and some of the things we're going to show in this lawsuit that we're going to start with is we're going to show, hey, did this happen? What actually supports this more than statistics? And you'll find that in our lawsuit, when we do publish it, we do move forward with it, we have found even more concerns that I would argue is proof of vote manipulation, and that will be here in the near future. And hopefully that will get us that next step of investigations, of forensic audits, and then we'll know, did this happen, did this not, and what can we do about it from there?
Yeah, and thanks to Election Truth Alliance for showing up in the chat and I guess answering some questions along the way. I haven't had a chance to really monitor it in real time, but apparently there's some good sort of supplemental information in the chat for those who want to go back and watch the live chat in replay. You can get that. You know, I think I would just say this in closing also. I like that these questions are being asked, and I think that there's a certain momentum that's achieved just by asking the questions and making noise. I do believe it's a noisy environment. We know the media environment is filled with a lot of stuff, and this could be just viewed as more stuff. But I think the more we talk about it, the more we demonstrate that it's underpinned by real statistical analysis, and then the legal challenges that may compel some sort of response, all of that helps elevate this conversation and maybe keeps the American elections more legitimate than illegitimate, and may prevent some of the other plans to delegitimize a lot of the process that we find in upcoming elections. So I really appreciate the work you do, Nathan. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for having us. And as I said, all this work is really to make sure that our elections are being free and fair in the future. And if they weren't, we want to find out. So
Right
thank you
on.
so much.
Yeah. Nathan Taylor, Election Truth Alliance. Check them out. Go to their website, follow them. And as we said, I guess there is a major legal action coming
Here
soon.
in the near future.
Yeah. Nathan Taylor, thank you, my friend.
Thank you, guys.
All right. So long.
The Mark Thompson Show.
That's hard work. I hope you got some of that. And I know some of these graphs can be overwhelming, but I think the reality is if you look at the graph, you don't need to take in every line of the graph. That's not the idea. So if you go back at all and watch this, or if you share this video, the key is you can just look at the overall trend and you can see what he's talking about. So that, I think, is the key there. You don't have to audit a statistics class to be able to get through this. So now, Kim.
Yes.
I have Michael Shure coming up in minutes.
You do.
But I also want to address, let me just see. Now, I'm going to include a lot of the DC stuff in my conversation with Michael Shure.
Mm-hmm.
And I will also talk Jerome Powell. I gave you a little bit of that at the beginning of the show. We'll do that at, and
we need to talk about California and our state legislature passing this bill, this election rigging act,
Right.
to put before the voters of California to see if we want to redraw our maps to counteract what Texas is doing.
Yeah, it passed the legislature, which is no surprise. But as Kim says, it'll now appear on the ballot and the voters will decide. And this is interesting. I saw the poll. Let me just see if I have it somewhere. Albert, the poll, I saw it in the LA Times, actually, about how Californians feel about answering Texas with our own response. And I remember the stats. I'll just give them to you. 48% responding to the poll said that they are in support of this plan. But that's not an overwhelming number. So it may be, as has been indicated in conversations on this show, it may be something of a big lift politically to get California to answer and redraw districts to answer Texas in the way that they have redrawn their maps. But we'll see. And again, it's a temporary redraw is what they're saying. in response to Texas. Otherwise, you roll over, you let Texas have 5 more, and pretty much the GOP controls everything until the end of time. And Trump answers to no one, and leave aside Trump, the administration, just generally, they answer to no one. They can fund anything. They can, you can see what ICE is doing with their funding. Did you see what ICE is doing with the purchase of these kind of cool cars? You see them? They've got, find this for me, Albert. Yeah.
Fancy cars?
Yeah, they've kind of got.
Let me guess. Teslas.
No, Teslas aren't a cool car.
Google it.
Not compared to, like, it's Ford F-150s and the Mustang. They're these cool, jacked up Mustangs. The Dodge Chargers. They're like these super cool vehicles that appeal to sort of the masculine energy that has populated so much of this administration. And add that to the $50,000 signing bonus you'll get for joining ICE, the volunteering that you can do if you're a National Guardsman and you just want to volunteer. There it is. You can see the picture. 2 vehicles, big, nasty Chevy trucks with ICE on the side. Again, this is all part of the masculine flex that is this entire effort. And so ICE has done everything they can to try to enlist more ICE agents, and they're going to enlist more ICE agents. They've dropped the age requirements. They've dropped the weight requirements. They dropped everything. They just want nightclub bouncers with an attitude who are 18 or older to wear that ICE jacket and the mask and to go into so many places where they know there are people who are undocumented. The agricultural fields of California, the kitchens of every major city, the sanitation companies that operate major sanitation businesses in buildings around the country, the slaughterhouses. This is where ICE agents are moving en masse.
Well, Trump said he was going to increase employment numbers, right? Maybe he's just opening up jobs, Mark.
The interesting thing about the National Guard moving toward what are sort of ICE-related activities is you can see in the National Guard numbers, I don't know if you saw this, but the National Guard re-up numbers are way down.
Oh.
Typically, people serve in the National Guard and they'll re-up into the National Guard, and they do it around 60, low 60s, 61%, 65% max, somewhere around that. The re-up rate now in the National Guard, 35%.
Ouch.
They want out. They want out of doing this work.
Would you sign up? This is not what people thought they were signing up for. I mean, to know that you're going to be a glorified ICE agent, to know that you're going to be called out against civilians, likely over and over again in different parts of the country, I wouldn't sign up again either.
Yeah. So that's a situation with ICE and in Washington, as I mentioned, most of that. And we'll talk to Michael Shure about this. It really looks like an ICE raid a lot of the time. It's, this whole idea we're going to knock down crime. Yeah.
Did you hear that the in DC, most of the folks that seem to be targeted are DoorDash drivers or delivery drivers?
Right. They're going after a lot of these delivery drivers. Kim is absolutely right. It's a weird fact that I guess they feel that that's sort of a target-rich environment for them. So
if they're supposed to be bringing crime rates down so you feel safe going out to dinner in Washington, D.C., why are they looking at delivery drivers? Are delivery drivers causing all the crime?
Well, they're bringing down delivery of meals in Washington, D.C. And I will remind you, I gave you this stat the other day that Donald Trump talks about, and we'll play you the video in just a moment. He talks about how it's safer to go out to a restaurant now in Washington, D.C. It's safer to walk the street in Washington, D.C. Restaurant reservations are down 35%. That's just at Open Table. They're down overall based on other stats related to restaurateurs and the restaurant industry in Washington. They're down 60% month to month. People don't want to go out in this kind of environment. It's scary. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if an ICE raid is going to happen in the restaurant that you're having dinner in. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
yeah. So we'll talk more with Michael Shure. I'm sure he has some thoughts on this. I just want to just mention my Coachella Valley coffee, which is
Delicious.
I'm going sunrise. That sunrise blend right now, and it is pretty special. I'm going to send Michael Shure some coffee, but he's going to have to get his own mug. Not sending the mug. I'll send the coffee.
Not the mug.
Yeah. Coffee's more expensive, but he's all about the mug, obsessing about the mug. Poor Michael Shure doesn't have his mug.
They do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
I know I'll get some static for it. Speaking of static, I just want to recognize Michael Shure before your segment starts officially. First of all, welcome.
Hi, Michael Shure.
The crowd loves you.
Hi, welcome. So obviously not a caffeinated version of me, but that's fine. And also,
look how handsome Michael Shure is without that beard. There's a handsome guy underneath that beard all this time.
Did he ever have a beard?
Oh my God.
Jesus.
No, he's always been
What?
clean shaven
What?
and baby
Just,
face.
I go back. Go ahead, Michael. Thank you.
Just lodging my just a brief complaint that I don't get to listen to Florida Fabulous Friday or Friday Fabulous Florida.
It follows your segment now. You can stick around for it, but it follows your segment now. That on the
As
show.
you would.
Michael Shure, fresh and young, says CBD. Yeah, he is. He's both. Speaking of blowback, though, this is the kind of thing. See, when you fill in for me, you don't have to deal with this. Show everybody, Richard Delamater, who's sort of a supporter of the show. This is what happens when you're being romanced by a listener viewer, and you feel like, oh, we're really on good footing. He really is repping the show. He has the merch. He's sending me emails all the time. Then I get this in the comments yesterday after our trading. Albert, show them the comment that Richard Delamater makes. He says that he says, OMFG, you had an effing $100 donor. All right, DOANER, but all right, which you did not go berserk over, but instead engaged the $5 comment. How do you expect anybody to feel special or to care about donating to your show big if it's not called out?
Hey, which one do you use, Mark Thompson?
It was it Mark Robinson yesterday who gave us $100 on the show? Is that right, Albert or Kim?
Yeah, Mark Robinson. We want to thank you again for the 99.
Mark, a big shout out to you.
Big shout out.
It was really great. I gave him the,
I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry.
I gave him the I'm not gonna cry. I don't give that to just anybody.
I think I gave him a Chappelle thank you too. For that.
Yes, you gave him a Chappelle. But Richard Delamater, I don't know. There are too many producers on this show. That's the problem. But all right.
The Mark Thompson Show.
We're grateful for all your support. Thank you. From $5 to $100 and beyond. Of course, Patreon is a great way to support us on an ongoing basis, as is PayPal. We're independent media, NPR, PBS model, and we could go the way of NPR, PBS if we don't get the support of the community. So thank you for all the ways you support us, and there are click-throughs to Patreon and PayPal under all our videos if you want to join us that way and be part of that community. This guy's forgotten more about politics than most of us will ever even know. He's the great Michael Shure, everyone.
Hi again.
Michael, I'll start with the news of the day, which was the raid on John Bolton's home and also his office. Sort of thin rationale for why it happened or reason offered for why it happened.
Right.
Looking into classified documents that might have been retained illegally, et cetera. Thoughts?
Well, I mean, it's what is the saying that you have the chickens guarding
coming home to roost?
Something? No, guarding somebody's guarding.
Oh yeah, the fox guarding the hen house.
Yeah, exactly. The fox guarding the hen house. This is a man who has been in receipt of and in possession of in his own private home classified documents at Mar-a-Lago and Donald Trump, and then going after John Bolton for the same. Like you said, it's a rationale, it's an excuse. Anytime anyone is pursued by Donald Trump or his administration is because of a personal vendetta. This is someone who did not remain loyal, and this is the punishment with a dictator type personality as they go after you for not supporting. And I think that's exactly what you're looking at with John Bolton, who, by the way, for his part, he was a conservative. He was loathed by a lot of the people that now support him against Donald Trump. But he is somebody whose consistency has always been, I think, unassailable. It's just that what he's been consistent about, a lot of people aren't crazy about. Then he went to work for Donald Trump, which was inconsistent, and found out what it's really like. So it's for this to happen is not surprising at all. It's all personal.
Yeah, I think that seems so obvious. And the point I was making earlier is simply on the book, which they kind of talk about, that, in service of writing his book, which does lay bare the fact that the president of the United States is clueless. I mean, makes no effort to learn anything about anything, never reads briefing materials, doesn't want to be briefed on anything. It's like, get out of my way. I got this. I'm ready for my close-up type of thing.
We know that about him, and Bolton does, and Bolton still went to work for him knowing that about him, but he did, and then he turned on him. And for that, a lot of people are grateful, because what was supposed to happen that didn't was the emboldening of other conservatives and Republicans and people of John Bolton's ilk to actually say, wait a second, this emperor has no clothes. But that hasn't happened.
Right. You're saying when he stepped forward, that was what he was hoping for. At the time, I think he fell into the category, this is, again, remember, Trump's first term, of other conservatives who joined that administration feeling I can influence policy. He certainly was in a position to do that. But and I loathe John Bolton.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. But whether you loathe him or not, you loathe more the fact that there's this sort of, fascist posture in going after your enemies in this way.
Well, no, that's exactly my point. And let me finish, if you would.
Can you let him finish, sir?
Yeah.
Are you done?
The courageous thing that John Bolton did was coming out so full-throatedly against Donald Trump and the administration, and the manner in which they are changing the policy in Washington and changing processes in Washington. And the book, as I say, lays bare a lot of what was going on. I mean, that was to pull back that curtain was courageous.
Yeah. And this isn't a new book that just hit the shelves either. So this means that he's been seething about this for quite a while, and Bolton continuing to be at the forefront of criticism to Donald Trump was as much as Trump could take. And for that, this is what you're seeing.
So let me ask you about something else that John Bolton has, just because we're on the Bolton thing, opined on, as have many. And of course, since this is something we do with you at the end of the week, sort of looking back at the week, let's talk about Ukraine and Russia for a moment. Let's talk about the summit from last Friday, and then the hurriedly put together meeting with European leaders that was to essentially redirect a lot of American policy represented by Trump, who was reflecting Russian policy and a Russian narrative toward the Ukraine war. Give me some thoughts on how everything went down and where we are now.
Well, I think we're right where we were beforehand, right? I mean, to me, there does not seem to have been a sea change in what happened. I think the most impressive part of this, because it wasn't a hurriedly arranged meeting with European leaders at first. It was a hurriedly arranged meeting with Volodymyr Zelensky. And then the European leaders were brought into the fold thereafter because of what happened in Alaska. So, but again, we aren't any closer, it seems, to peace, to ceasefire, to negotiation than we were last Thursday before Trump went to Alaska to meet Putin. I think what it did do was it gave Trump the opportunity to show that he wants to be involved. And the way that came across to a lot of people was really in a distasteful way because of the way that, he rolled out the red carpet quite literally for Vladimir Putin. But again, now you're hearing that Russia wants land. There won't be peace without land. Ukraine says they don't want to give up any land. They don't want to give up the Donbas region. They don't want to give up more of Crimea. And you have Europe stepping in and saying, we're still unified and we consider Ukraine one of us, even if NATO is not in the conversation. So it almost, in a way, redefined boundaries that already existed. So I don't see, I think with the absence of Congress too, it both hurt and helped the president's cause. It helped because you didn't have Democratic representatives. I mean, when I say absence of Congress not being in session, you didn't have people in front of microphones all week deriding the president, but you also didn't have Republican support except from the usual suspect places like Lindsey Graham, et cetera.
Seems to me, Michael, that Donald Trump is going to baby step backward away from this. I've made this point on the program before, so regulars know it, but I think the idea is he's going to foist this onto Europe, and he's going to foist it onto Zelensky, and he's going to say, it's you guys, you got to work this out. I brought you all together. I tried to put the two of you together. By the way, the Kremlin, for all of the statements on the part of the White House that, we're going to get a trilateral, a trilat. They like to say, we're going to get a trilat going.
Trilat.
A trilat. I'm going to put together a trilat. I guess they call it a trilat. The idea that was going to happen is gone. I mean, the Kremlin said there's not going to be any meeting between Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky. So I think it seems to me, based on what I'm seeing, the layering in of different things he's saying and just how tough a nut this is to crack, Putin has been completely intransigent on this. I mean, he's not moving in any way or giving up any demand. And I just see Trump pulling back, especially since the Europeans may fill a bit of the American void.
Yeah, well, they are. I don't think that's a bad take, Mark, but the one thing is there's nothing predictable and there's no precedent. So there's no way, all it is a very smart guess as to what's happening, which is, what we do. But I wouldn't be surprised if the exact opposite happened either, because Trump is so unpredictable. And so when it comes to, look, do I think Ukraine clearly is not throwing in the white towel? If the election of Donald Trump didn't force them into that just almost by default, then clearly his inability to broker peace is not going to have that happen either. And then when you see Macron and Starmer and Merz and others sort of joining forces there's no real reason for him to do it right now. I think there are a lot of Russians that say that it was a victory already for Ukraine to have been able to not just withstand.
Maybe it's a stalemate that Trump doesn't want any part of, and maybe it's a stalemate that Trump wants all his footprints all over. Also, it has the additional virtue of distracting from some other issues that Trump may have at home. Jeffrey Epstein is one of them. That entire case continues to get all over Trump. The release of some Epstein file-related material happens today. It's the beginning of Congress in receipt of some of that. Apparently, I haven't seen it, but apparently the early stuff is sort of unremarkable and sort of is, surprise, surprise, nothing particularly damning to Donald Trump, a guy who was clearly very closely associated with Jeffrey Epstein for over a decade. So,
right. I mean, and that's I haven't seen any of it, so I'm glad you're not asking me about it. And I wouldn't expect when things are released.
Yeah,
they generally aren't the things you want to read and see. They're generally things that have passed muster for some reason because they're usually pretty tame and uninteresting. Doesn't mean this is going to be the case, but I haven't seen any of it. And you make a good point, though. I mean, the distractions of international diplomacy and policy and focus are always for presidents of both parties forever have been about distracting from what's going on at home. And Trump has tried to do that, but there's been a focus on his inefficacy in doing that in Alaska.
In that spirit, I'll ask you just about what's happened with the movement of warships off the coast of Venezuela. There's some that would say it's completely one-dimensional as a distraction to take our eye off the Epstein ball.
Right.
There are others who would say it's a military flex which Trump loves because he can move the military around like chess pieces anywhere he wants. I think that's a fair take. Both can be true, of course.
Right.
And the idea somehow that you're going to handle any kind of issue with drugs coming out of Venezuela with these warships present seems like a degree of lunacy to me. Can you speak to it?
Yeah, it does. And casting Latin America as an enemy is something that Donald Trump is trying to do in many ways as well. Both Latin Americans here in the United States, as we know, and you've covered a lot, but also the fact that these governments are somehow the enemy of the United States, and we can use the military. But again, the warships off the coast of Venezuela, I think, are a perfect example of this sort of distraction that we just talked about. That this is not about, protecting America. This is about distracting. But at a certain point, there's so much to distract from that even the distractions become part of and
you have to distract from your own distractions.
Well, that's what I think. In a way, that's what's happening to Trump, right? I mean, that he's getting criticized even for these distractions, and you're seeing it in the posture of Congress right now, and you're seeing it in the way that when this Congress comes back, and they're going to be talking about running for re-election next year, they're going to have to find, Republicans in Congress are going to have to find something to run on. And if the president keeps running from everything, it gives them very little to hang on to. And I think that's going to become a political problem for them as well. And while we're on this, I'm kind of running with this, but the United States Senate, which previously had seemed out of reach for Democrats, is all of a sudden starting to look like a place where Democrats could possibly win the Senate back. There are good candidates running again. There is a weak president who will not be on the ballot. We know that a lot of the people who support Donald Trump don't show up unless Donald Trump himself is on the ballot. That's not going to be the case. So you have Sherrod Brown running now in Ohio. You have galvanizing candidate in Iowa to run against Joni Ernst. They've sort of thinned the field there. The same thing has happened in North Carolina now with Roy Cooper, a twice elected Democratic governor there. Susan Collins, on the ropes a little bit, but that we've said that before, so I don't want to be guilty of saying it again. There are opportunities. Oh, Pete Ricketts, a Republican in Nebraska you may never have heard of, a billionaire in Nebraska right now looks like he's in a little bit of trouble. All of this, I say all of this both because it's an interesting political story, but because in order to hold on to the Senate, they have something to run on. And right now, there's nothing for them to run on. And as much as Donald Trump's trying to run away from things, they need something that's real.
Well, they could be getting even more. I mean, first of all, I'm super intrigued by the notion that the Democrats could win. So you're the first person I've heard articulate that publicly. I mean, that it's always been a battle over the House, and to be fair, that may be because of redistricting, which I'd love to talk about in just a second. But so that might have just sort of stolen the show for a while. But wow, I mean, if you could really regain control of the Senate, you can affect so many things in American life, and you can affect the judiciary. You can affect a lot of stuff.
Yeah. I'm not addressing it as likely. I'm just saying it seems a lot. The field looks a whole lot better than it did even 6 weeks ago for the Democrats. And when you see these people running, and you see what states are in play, and you also see the difficulty that the Republican Party is having right now. Not that the Democrats are smooth sailing too; they're huge problems, but they have a difficult time. The Republicans do, winning recently without Trump on the ballot, and that's going to be the case in 26.
Tell me about the redistricting. I was noting in California, I saw a poll today in the LA Times. Of course, California, the announcement from Gavin Newsom that they passed the legislature, that it'll appear on the ballot, that voters will be able to decide if we should redistrict in California. I say we because I'm in California. But Texas, they of course slid that through without any question. They didn't have to bring it to voters because that's just the way Texas works. And the California situation, as I say, I was reading in the LA Times, polls at about 48% is what I was seeing, at least at this moment. That means to me not a lead pipe cinch, or tell me how it would go down with a vote to redistrict.
Two things you need to know is that California voters have twice voted for an independent commission to determine congressional districts. It is made up of 5 Republicans and 5 Democrats. That has been voted on by the voters, and voters typically don't like undoing what they've already voted for. They also, the people who are casually looking at this right now, have not been asked to opine on it, right? They see it happening from afar. So if you're going in basically at 48% without Governor Newsom campaigning for it, without all the, tens, hundreds of millions of dollars that are going to go into this campaign for it, that's a good place for the governor to be right now. 48% built in already. That means all you need is a few more percent and to find a way to get people to vote in November. So that's not a bad place for him to be. But there are hurdles, unlike in Texas where they can just do it in the state legislature. They cannot do that in California. The voters get a say, which is great, but it also means it's not, like you said, a lead pipe cinch. Though I would argue that 48% a good place to start from.
Well, you've got me thinking about when you talk about the Senate and just even as an outside chance type thing, you've got me thinking about the political water that Trump may take on as a result of some of these moves. And one of his flexes is taking over D.C. Albert, play for Michael Shure, if you would, the Trump remarks that were just made today about the changes in D.C., how D.C. has become this paradise just in 7 days. It's quite amazing. I mean, I wish more people would realize the power of the Trumpian presence. He brought in the National Guard. As you know, National Guard troops volunteered. They were volunteered by the governors of 2 other states, at least, maybe 3. And so they have a presence in Washington. Most of the busts, I'll mention, that they talk about, most of the busts are associated. Oh, Albert took off. I see. Okay. He's gone for a couple minutes. Most of the busts are ice raid sorts of busts. They're, as Kim was saying, they're taking DoorDash delivery people, and they're these are immigration busts. They're not crime busts. No DoorDash driver is stealing or murdering anybody in Washington, and that's all Trump talks about. Give me a thought, and then I'll play you that Trump stuff.
Yeah, again, like it's all a part of the big picture, but when you get down to the small picture, it's kind of, this is happening in a very small way. Reversing crime in a city by doing this is absurd. And what you're doing is you're hurting small businesses because fewer people are going to want to deliver for these restaurants. And the other part of it is that Trump doesn't care because the people that are having a harder time in Washington, to him, are not people that support Republicans or Trump anyway. So it's a strange part of the electorate that doesn't have any vote in Congress. And he does. He's a guy who thinks about the balance sheet. He doesn't really care about the people. We know that. He cares about what does it mean for Trump. So the optics are horrible. The efficiency is horrible, and who it's hurting is devastating because you're arresting delivery drivers, which means people are going to be less likely to do that work, which is going to hurt the businesses that make the food in the first place and make it more difficult for people to get it. So and get the work. It's terrible.
So what I'm seeing, just to tie it into Jerome Powell remarks that I played at the beginning of the show, and I watched that address from Powell, and of course he's very circumspect about things. He doesn't want to, commit to anything necessarily, but he referenced an inflationary trend tied to tariffs. One of the things he questioned was, is this a permanent sort of inflation, a one-time inflation? In other words, responding to the tariffs, the inflationary spiral adjusts as opposed to a kind of inflationary spiral that's the result of other outside forces. He used almost those exact words. And he seemed to suggest that the Fed might be open to dropping interest rates. If that happened, it would be obviously inflationary, and the price of money is cheaper. It would also, so it kind of flies in the face of these concerns because the inflation numbers are running ahead of goals. He also mentioned that today, Jerome Powell did. But it also, and this is the political part that I wanted to ask you about, it also seems as though he's yielding to pressure from Trump.
Well, Yeah, to a degree, it does seem that he's yielding to pressure. People yield to the president in terms of that sort of thing.
Well, let me just, I don't mean to interrupt you, but just to interrupt you, didn't Biden, in the run-up to the election that Trump won, didn't they have to deal with the feds not lowering rates and actually raising rates?
They did, but what I'm saying is this pressure has been constant, but also he's the chairman of the Fed, and one of the things they do is lower interest rates, and he hasn't done it at the request of presidents. So you can hear that now. You can say, well, Powell seems to be yielding just because they lower interest rates. I think his record on not yielding to the president or any president is pretty stellar. So when he does do it, it won't be because he's yielding to a president. It'll be because he thinks he's looking at the economic numbers, he's speaking with the people that he speaks to, and he's deciding with all of that information that it's time to lower interest rates. So
I respectfully, I have immense regard for you, as you know, and your position on this sort of thing. But I must tell you that I think takes out of the equation all of the realities concerning the American economy. As well, he's not lowered rates before when he's been pressured, and he's raised rates when yeah, but that was in response to actual economic trends. Here you have an economic trend that's inflationary. You know that lowering rates will feed an inflationary trend, and therefore, I'd suggest that just basic economics, and really that's all I understand is basic economics, would suggest that you wouldn't lower rates in this instance. And the other thing I would just say quickly is the attack on another Federal Reserve board member that we heard this week. I mean, she's been attacked by Trump, called out by Trump. They've begun a Justice Department investigation into her. It's a warning shot to Powell saying, hey, dude, you'll play by my rules or you won't play at all. There's even an open conversation about who's going to replace Jerome Powell.
No, I get that, Mark. But what I'm saying is, and it's not like Powell's never lowered rates either, right? I mean, it's not like he's never done it. But and I'm not an economist, and just like you said, you're not. But there are factors that are not just inflation. I mean, sometimes Fed chairs raise or lower interest rates knowing that it might have an inflationary effect, but because it will do other things to the economy which are lagging in and of themselves. And whether it's spurring a housing market that's faltering, whether it is, I'm trying to think of what, consumer prices going down. I know wholesale prices going up has been devastating to consumers putting money into the economy, that credit cards are not seeing as much use. So there's a lot that goes into it. I'm not going to profess any kind of expertise in it, but it isn't just the inflationary reasons that would prevent someone from doing it. I think you either trust or don't trust, or agree with or don't agree with, if you are a politician or an economist with whoever the Fed chair is. But I'm looking at Jerome Powell, and I've seen sort of, I haven't seen him buckling to presidential pressure as much as to what he, as the guide of the Federal Reserve, according to what he's done. But again, I'm not professing to be an expert.
Yeah. To me, it looks as though Powell is blinking, but again, I go,
But that's what I'm saying, Mark. If he lowers interest rates at any time, whatever his reasoning, and let's also say he hasn't done it yet, but if he does it, it doesn't have to be because he's finally giving in to Trump's pressure, even though that's how Trump will frame it.
It does if the underpinning economics don't point to it. He points to an unemployment number and an inflation number. He refers to both of them. And then he says, but we may make, if we make an adjustment in rates. Albert, play it for Michael Shure again, because I want to win this argument. God damn it.
You're not going to win because I'm not really arguing.
Okay, well then never mind. Don't.
Well, I want to hear it. I do want to hear it.
Okay. Do you have, Albert, the part I sent you this morning? Those who are listener viewers to Hour One, you've probably already heard this. We ran at the very beginning of the show. Is Albert there now, or is Albert? Here he is. Okay. Here's a bit of Powell. Go ahead.
Really visible. We expect those effects to accumulate over coming months with high uncertainty about both timing and amounts. The question that matters for monetary policy is whether these price increases are likely to materially raise the risk of an ongoing inflation problem. A reasonable base case is that the effects will be relatively short-lived, a one-time shift in the price level. Of course, one time does not mean all at once. It will continue to take time for tariff increases to work their way through supply chains and distribution networks. Moreover, tariff rates continue to evolve, potentially prolonging the adjustment process. It's also possible, however, that the upward pressure on prices from tariffs could spur a more lasting inflation dynamic, and that is a risk to be assessed and managed. One possibility is that workers who see their real incomes decline because of higher prices demand and get higher wages from employers, setting off adverse wage price dynamics. Given that the labor market is not particularly tight and faces increasing downside risks, that outcome does not seem likely. Another possibility is that inflation expectations could move up, dragging actual inflation with them. Inflation has been above our target for more than 4 years and remains a prominent concern for households and businesses.
All right, let's stop
Measures
right there.
of longer term.
I thought the last couple of comments were, particularly relevant as he, references inflation, and it's an ongoing.
It's all relevant. But what I'm saying is that if he lowers interest rates, if the Fed lowers interest rates, it is a balancing act. And there is always a risk, just as there is a risk to leaving them the same or raising them, right? Every time they do it. But I don't know. I just don't see Powell.
I'm just describing what you're saying is you can't always ascribe whatever they're doing, raising or lowering, to some kind of political pressure. Of course, that's true. But what I'm saying is you can, when you can look at overall economic trends. And I'm going to finish this argument by saying Brett has mentioned in the comments, hate to agree with Mark, but he's right, Michael. And so that is the ultimate vote here. And
Good day, sir.
Yes.
We're letting Brett decide this.
Brett in the court of Brett. And by the way, we need more Brett on this show. We need more Brett. All right. So maybe we part company of that. You're just saying, hey, doesn't necessarily.
No, I'm just saying that Powell, to me, has acquitted himself as someone who gives in
Agreed.
to political pressure.
Which is why I think it's particularly notable. Yes.
At some point, every Fed chair will do something with the interest rate, most probably. And if he lowers it, it won't be because Donald Trump wants him to lower it. It'll be because there's a massive numbers that they're looking at and indicators and concerns and encouraging signs. There's so much that is involved in doing that it isn't just about inflation. And sometimes they sacrifice inflation for the sake of building consumer confidence because that's better for the overall economy and helps to bring inflation down. I don't know why, but to me, I don't see Jerome Powell as someone who caves to political pressure.
All right.
And Brett,
That's
Brett's
going
to go to bed tonight knowing that he had to agree with you, Mark.
Can you let him finish, sir?
That's exactly why it's notable, because he's not someone who's used to, we're used to seeing caving. Michael, I adore you. It's very rare that we would even go around on anything, but I kind of like it.
It's good. It's healthy. It's normal. And I don't think our disagreement was terribly sharp either. It's just, to me, it's more of a,
my fondness for you makes me soften on the whole coffee mug thing, and I think I may have to get you one. So,
well, don't send the coffee in.
Nothing.
Okay. Michael, thank you. We'll talk next week. All right, my friend. See you. Michael Shure, everybody. Nice stuff.
The Mark Thompson Show.
There is, I adore you too, Michael Shure, says CBD. Noe Marie saying, I'm hopeful for November 4th. Low information voters are lower turnout voters in non-presidential elections. Of course, that's true. 48% of people answering from home has the ability to get to a 51% plus turnout. That's basically what Michael Shure was saying. So good stuff. And thanks, Noe Marie, for the super chat. Trump raised my blood pressure lying about Social Security, and I had a stroke last Thursday. Is that right? Michelle Walton? Jeez, that's a guy. Man, that's awful. I'm so sorry, Michelle. the good news about strokes is depending on their severity, there's so many ways you get full function back. Or, I mean, that's just not my opinion. I've heard it from many doctors, but really sorry to hear that. Ron says Richard deserves a big thanks for the 100. No, Richard didn't give us 100. Richard was making a point that we should have made a bigger deal out of the guy Mark Robinson, who did give us 100. That's, if you're following that little passion play, that's the way that's working for the moment. Anything else I need? For $100, you can get 4 coffees in Las Vegas, says Lance. Vegas is expensive, isn't it? Yeah.
It's like really, 2 water bottles, too. 2 water bottles, $100.
Exactly.
That's higher prices than Disneyland. It's robbery.
Pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. Trump says he knows nothing about Bolton's house getting raided this morning by the FBI. Yeah, he doesn't. I mean, he doesn't seem to know much. When they told me about it, I don't know about it. I don't have anything to do with that. I don't do enough Trump impression. By the way, I was watching.
That's pretty good. You've been hanging out with Covan too much.
J.L. Covan does a great Trump impression because he has the walk and he does the lean and he does all the verbal tics. And I watched his special last night, and you've got to watch it. It's so much fun. Trump versus Canada, it's called. He did it in Canada, in Toronto. And he did the whole thing as Trump. And it's terrific. And he just takes Q&A from the audience a lot of the time. Fully half the special is him just responding to questions. Hello, everyone. Late to the show. Flying to Seattle as we speak, says Chaplain Fred. Got free Wi-Fi flying Alaska Airlines. Now I can see the show. Wow. Yay. Chaplain Fred joining from high altitude. Thank you for the $5 super chat. Wow, that's pretty cool.
Safe travels, friend.
Safe travels, friend. And may all of your chaplaining be done safely. Albert, we've got Friday Fabulous Florida still to do, and then the great culture blaster, Michael Snyder. So I'd like you to assume your position as curator of Friday Fabulous Florida. We'll do 3 stories. And
that last one we have, we could just run the video. It'll explain itself.
Oh, wow. Okay. So is that the that's the crash or the Florida woman? Which one?
That's the Florida woman, yes.
The Florida woman. Okay. So Friday Fabulous Florida is next, and then the Culture Blaster, Michael Shure. Smash the like button. It's important to us, and we'll do it in 30 seconds.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
All right, everybody, we got to do it. What was that about, dude? What's that about? Don't turn on me. I'll turn on you like a rabid animal. How dare you, Michael Snyder, slides in here. First of all, he's nosy as hell. He always wants to know what's going on, and then he passes judgment on everything I'm doing.
I think we should invite him in to be part of Friday Fabulous Florida.
I love it when you're angry.
I am telling you that the
more the merrier.
I'm ready not to do your segment at all. That's how annoyed I am.
I am a professional critic. What do you expect me to do but criticize? How dare you?
All right, let's do it. This is Friday Fabulous Florida.
It's time for Friday Fabulous Florida.
There is a gigantic alligator in my kitchen.
A look at the weirdest stories from our weirdest state.
A Florida man is arrested after his drone crashes into a house. The drone was carrying drugs, everybody. Of course, it's Florida.
Seriously? Drone drugs?
Seriously?
Seriously? What the
A Florida man facing charges. His drone carrying drugs, including meth, fentanyl, crashed into a home.
Can I get some cocaine? No cocaine in there?
No cocaine that we are aware of. The homeowners called authorities after they said that a man showed up at their front door crashing the drone into the house. Deputies responded, found the drone, multiple bags containing meth and fentanyl. 49-year-old Jason Brooks taken into custody. You know, you hit your late 40s and you got to pick up a new kind of line of work. And
The shocker is that the homeowners didn't say finders keepers, dude.
Yeah, that's right. They called you're right. That
It's
really
Florida.
would have been, that was the twist, wasn't it?
I mean, except for the crashing into the house, that could have been a masterful crime.
It is a good plan to fly him in via drone. You know?
Ooh, it's a wild idea, but it just might work.
We're in his territory, says the man bitten while taking a photo with the shark. One man hospitalized taking a photo with a 6-foot lemon shark off the Florida coast in Cayo Costa State Park. 2 men caught the predator while on a shark fishing trip and say that they were preparing to release it back into the water when the shark bit one of the men in the leg.
Oh, God.
He had to be airlifted to a local hospital and get surgery. He is expected to make a full recovery. He said, the guy bitten, that even with his near-death experience, it would not deter him from getting back to hunting predators in the future. Well, just tell me the truth. Who's the predator in that situation? You'd call the shark the predator? I call you hunting the shark the predator.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was reading an article last night. What causes more injuries, selfies or shark attacks?
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah. The answer is, you want the answer?
What do you think, Michael Snyder?
Well, insofar as a woman bit me when I tried to take a selfie with her, I would say selfies are more dangerous.
Michael Snyder is right. It's selfies cause more injuries
very
than
well
shark
done,
attacks.
Michael Snyder. Wow.
Yes, science
Very
says
good.
taking
I'm kidding.
a selfie,
She didn't bite me. She kissed me. It's okay.
Well, that's
Science
very
says
cool.
taking a selfie is more likely to result in death than a shark attack. No joke.
Wow. So this guy got both of them.
There's never been anything like this.
How do you die taking a selfie? Come on, Kim, get me some details.
Well,
have you seen the people trying to take selfies near the bison in Yellowstone? Come on.
It's
They
not
get
always
bored.
animals. A friend of mine, good friend of mine, died falling off and back off of a cliff in Monterey.
What? Happens all the time.
Yeah, it happens all the time. You want to read a paper, okay, Snyder? Read a paper.
What's a paper, Mark?
Okay. Tampa cops have released a video of a woman being arrested after admitting to an officer that she drank a twisted tea and she said she could drink a whole bottle of tequila. Here's Albert with the video.
Tonight, I haven't drink. Honestly, I would say I drink a twisted tea. But I'm not going to sit here and lie to you like, oh, I've been drinking too much. Because I can sit here and drink a whole tequila bottle or something and feel like horrible. But I'm chilling. And at the end of the day, like, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. What the like, it's not going to make sense.
So you were drinking some twisted teas earlier?
Yeah, of course.
And the amount you had was one?
And I'm just chilling now. At the end of the day, we're going to go home and just chill because what are we going to do outside when there's nothing here for us, if you know what I mean?
So the next exercise is what's called a one-leg stand exercise. What's gonna happen? You're gonna hold your foot about 6 inches from the heel to the ground.
Gotcha.
And you're gonna look down at it. You're gonna count. Okay.
Gotcha.
While you're doing this, your arms are down at your side. Okay.
Of course.
Your foot's about 6 inches from which is about the height of a soda can. Okay.
It's like a kangaroo thing.
Oh no kangaroo here. Okay.
Let me know when.
Go ahead and begin.
Now?
Yep.
Oh, sorry.
Wow. Oh.
I don't think she's doing badly with it. I don't know. I mean,
I don't know. She's not even walking at this point. She's just trying to balance. She's managing it though.
Isn't that what he was asking her to do? It was,
Yeah.
to be fair to her, it was kind of a complicated request.
You can stop. You
Yeah.
can stop.
I mean, she's obviously inebriated, dude. You don't need to have her go through a test. Yeah.
So stand here where you're at.
Yeah.
You do just bring your arms down here.
Yeah.
You're here behind you. I want you to stand
Okay,
here just
there
like
you go.
this. Don't
So
move.
that she was taken into custody and booked. By the way, Albert, I love a couple of moments in that for drops, the chillin' stuff. If you
Yeah.
could send it along to me, I would. I can pull some drops from that. I'm just chilling. I'm just chilling now. Yeah, just chilling. I mean, who isn't? We all want to chill. We all want to be just chilling. And Rhonda says it. I couldn't follow what he was saying, and I can't do that sober, says Rhonda. I don't know what he's saying. Hold it up about 6 inches. It's the size of a soda can. Put your hand. I mean, dude, one thing at a time. And by the way, she was so completely blotto. I'm surprised you had to actually ask her to do anything. Anyway, we need to vote. It's in the
Can we ding
bylaws
blotto,
of the show.
Blotto? No.
Can you what?
Ding blotto. Is that okay?
I don't think blotto's a ding word. I'm
I
sorry.
think that's pretty good.
It's
You don't hear that very often.
No, you don't. You're
Yeah.
all right. All right. I'm not going to argue with Kim. You know, you argue with Kim and people get angry. Kim's the greatest. How could you argue with her? I mean, how could anybody ever argue
Kim,
with
how are you?
Yeah. Florida man is arrested after his drone carrying drugs crashes into a house. We're in his territory, said a man who was bitten while taking a photo with a shark. And the Florida woman arrested, she said, I will say I drank a twisted tea, but that's nothing because I could drink a whole bottle of tequila, and I am just chilling. Which one is your favorite, Kim?
Oh, I'm gonna say the shark selfie story.
Oh, that's a surprise. Didn't expect that. How about you, Snyder?
Drone, baby, drone.
Drone, baby, drone. I'm going drone, baby, drone. Meth and fentanyl and home delivery that
Also,
went bad.
An enterprising businessman in Ron DeSantis' Florida.
Yeah. And Albert, how about in the chat? What are they saying?
A good mix of all of them. Everybody loves the new potential for the chillin' drop. So I think that's the winner here for me.
That's the winner. All right. Chillin' we are. That's Friday Fabulous Florida.
This has been Friday Fabulous Florida.
There is a gigantic alligator in my kitchen.
Y'all come back now here.
I misspoke.
Yeah, it's welcome back, everyone. Smash the like button like a boss, if you would, and let's get this thing going.
The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, I am excited. This guy is someone who knows his stuff when it comes to every sort of movie. The Marvel universe, the DC universe, the subtitle universe, the weird French film, the odd Korean film, the Japanese sequel film, the prequels. Doesn't matter what it is. He's on top of it. He comes and goes on a rainbow. The great culture blaster, Michael Snyder, everyone. Hi,
Hey,
Michael.
yeah, I'm still here. No, I'm back. Let's put it that way. Hi, Kim. Hi, Albert. And Tony, I know you're out there somewhere. Mark, as you know, I regularly tune into the show in addition to being a weekly contributor. And I was fascinated and troubled by your conversation earlier today with Nathan Taylor about election fraud. It made me long for those more innocent days when Stormy Daniels accused Donald Trump of erection fraud. Those were the good old
election
days.
erection.
Yeah, okay,
yeah,
fine.
Yeah.
I'm working the B material this morning. It's like saying Kristi Noem's favorite song, Ice Ice Baby. What else?
Yeah.
Anyway, we should get to the movies because we have a whole slew of them. What do you say, buddy?
Get to it, kid. Go for it.
Okay, I don't want to damn director Ron Howard's Eden with faint praise when I say that this adventure yarn.
Hang on a second. Hold on a second.
See,
Albert or Kim, why are there none of his movies listed in the rundown? I make notes so that I can recapitulate at the end, like a review.
Right.
And I do that. It's made much easier if the basic bones of the. Sorry, Michael, but
all of this was sent to you guys in the dark of night.
The same thing happened last week, which is why I have to draw this to your attention. I just don't understand. I don't understand.
It is there now. Yes.
We're burning up valuable time doing this. But yes, I get it.
Would you like to apologize for what you've done?
All right.
Okay.
All right. Go ahead, Michael.
So yeah,
let's start again so you can cut this part out.
Ron Howard's Eden, right? It's a new film by the director, Ron Howard. And, it seems like I might be quibbling about this adventure yarn, which is, by the way, based on actual people and events, by saying it's one of the better movies by Howard that I've seen in a while, because, he is, after all, the guy who directed Splash, Apollo 13, A Beautiful Mind, The Da Vinci Code, but his more recent output has been spotty at best. Eden, on the other hand, felt like a return to form, although not your typical feel-good populist Howard project. It's essentially, as I noted, a true story that was previously unknown to me, and it's kind of a jaw-dropper, so I was really happy to be enlightened. So get ready. Eden concerns a handful of people who, in the early 1930s, voyaged to an uninhabited island in the extremely isolated Galapagos chain to escape society and live in a supposed utopia.
Oh yeah, I've read about this. This is a fascinating story. Go
It
ahead.
is. It is. But paradise isn't easily found in such an unforgiving location, right? I mean, trouble ensues. The main cast is totally A-list. Jude Law plays writer and philosopher Friedrich Ritter, who decides to leave a volatile Germany with the Third Reich on the rise and find peace in this distant place. Vanessa Kirby, most recently Sue Storm in the Fantastic Four film, is Ritter's devoted partner and acolyte, Dory Strach. She's a true back-to-nature type who is suffering from a debilitating neurological disorder, and she seeks a place to kind of find herself and maybe heal herself. Daniel Brühl, the terrific German actor, plays Heinz Wittmer, who came to the island with his young wife and his son by his first marriage after being inspired by Ritter's dispatches that appeared in German newspapers. Sydney Sweeney, of all actresses, is Heinz's wife, Margaret, and the lovely Ana de Armas plays a veritable ticking bombshell, the Baroness Eloise Verborn de Wagner-Bosquet. She's a scheming socialite who shows up on the island with her servile entourage. Are you ready? Her two male lovers and a third man she's brought along to manage a resort hotel that she plans to erect there. This is kind of nuts. And I got to say, it was gratifying to watch these top-notch players. And, despite her good work on other dramatic roles, which she's done, I was kind of surprised by the standout performance from Sweeney in kind of an anti-glamour, even a dowdy part, playing Margaret. This is beautifully shot in a wild location. Eden is an intriguing survival tale, as you can imagine, considering that the public knew about these willing castaways, and they would have occasional visitors when a ship would deliver correspondence from the outside world. This wrenching, enveloping narrative, the island dwellers' struggle against the elements and each other, is made all the more compelling by the truth of the story that's dramatized on screen. Eden is in theaters.
I'm anxious to see it, only because I know the story. I'm pretty familiar with it. I've read about it. I think there have been podcasts about it. And I'm anxious to see how Howard plays it out. And I'm encouraged by the fact that you feel like this is a return to Howard's form a bit.
Right. And yet it's not the kind of movie you expect from him. And I also want to point out that it's getting mixed reviews, but screw those other people. Anyway.
Okay, what else you have?
And other people like the next movie more than I did. Relay is a contemporary thriller about a New York City fixer who helps people, mostly corporate types, who have gotten in trouble for acting against the interests of their employers. So Riz Ahmed plays Tom, a fixer whose means of communication with those hiring him is a unique and discreet messaging service, which is probably meant to distinguish him and Relay itself from previous movies of this ilk. Let me make clear that Relay is not bad at all. In fact, it kept me caught up in its twists and turns, but as it proceeded, I felt like it wasn't as good as I initially thought it was.
It didn't pay off.
It does, but anyway, by the time it got to some late in the game revelations, I had this sense of diminishing returns, and it expended a lot of effort to get there, right? So Ahmed's co-star is Lily James, Lady Rose from Downton Abbey, Pamela Anderson and Pam and Tommy, and she's been in a number of things. She's very talented and very versatile. And here she plays a client who has decided to back off from bringing down the company she worked for, and to show her contrition, safely return some purloined, incriminating documents via Ahmed. Okay, so far so good, until Relay gets a little murkier and a little repetitive. The rest of the cast includes Sam Worthington and Willa Fitzgerald as Ahmed's main adversaries, as he tries to extricate James's character from the danger she's brought on herself as a whistleblower. Worthington is usually solid. He is here. And Fitzgerald was so fantastic in last year's stunning noir thriller, Strange Darling. It's kind of a shame they're given, kind of a feckless cookie-cutter roles here. David Mackenzie, who directed the totally cool neo-Western heist Hell or High Water, does what he can with Justin Piasecki's circuitous script. Relay was, at best, okay. It's in select theaters. Again, this is one of those not terrible. Michael Snyder, The Mark Thompson Show.
Feckless, circuitous, extricate, murkier. Purloined for sure is a ding word.
Please spare me.
But here is the one he started with. Servile is a definite ding word. Yes.
Yeah, that's actually a review ago, but thank you for remembering.
No, it was a review ago, but I jot them down so as not to throw us off.
Yes, only to slow things up. You know, Ethan Cohn.
I love it when Albert and I are doing echoing ding words. Go ahead.
Ethan Cohn of the celebrated fraternal screenwriting and directing duo, the Coen Brothers, directed and co-wrote the script for the crime comedy Honey Don't. Sounds promising, right? But it wasn't co-written with his brother Joel. Here's the setup. Sexy lipstick lesbian private investigator. I know you're perked up when you hear that. Honey O'Donoghue lives and works in the California desert town of Bakersfield and finds herself confronting some dead bodies that may or may not be related to the greedy machinations of the oversexed spiritual leader of a local evangelical church. Action and quips are in offing. I wanted to like it, and I will say it's a bit better than Drive Away Dolls, the first movie in what Ethan and his wife Tricia Cook and his co-author of the script say is going to be part of a comedic lesbian noir trilogy. By the way, Ethan and Tricia are apparently in a non-traditional marriage. That's what they call it. I just thought I'd throw that little
in real life, the director
little tidbit there.
Yeah.
So Honey Don't is the second of those lesbian noir movies, and I think it's kind of a step up from Drive Away Dolls because the mystery that Honey is trying to solve keeps your attention, but much of Honey Don't seems forced, despite the efforts of a talented cast led by Margaret Qualley as Honey. She's wonderful. And it doesn't hurt that the movie also features Chris Evans as the evangelist of questionable morality, Aubrey Plaza as a sullen local cop, and Charlie Day as a Bakersfield police detective with a fruitless crush on Honey. She's not going to go for you, dude. Just relax. As much fizz as Qualley provides, and she is far and away the best thing about the movie. Honey Don't is often as flat and arid as Bakersfield itself.
Oh, I love that. That's the writer in you. I love it when you say stuff like that.
The isolated moments of verve, mostly courtesy of the magnetic Qualley and the occasional witty jape aside, this is a disappointment, especially considering its pedigree. If you expect this to be anywhere near as good as a Coen Brothers movie, Honey Don't. Anyway,
I get what you did. Very well done.
It's in theaters. Oh, God, I was so hoping it was going to be better than it was.
So Margaret Qualley is
she's the main squeeze here. She's wonderful. And I just saw her in a movie that isn't going to be out for a few weeks yet where she was absolutely a knockout. And we'll get to that movie when it's
time.
In the offing.
What else do you have?
Coming from the filmmaking team of Michael Angelo Covino and Kyle Marvin. These are not big names, but they're the guys that did the uncomfortably funny comedy The Climb a few years back. Splitsville is even funnier and a little more twisted in a jaundiced look at the competitive to toxic relationship between two men who have known one another for a while. And as was the case with The Climb, Covino directs a script that he co-wrote with Marvin, and they co-star as the male leads, but they've taken a step up on the casting front as the guys are paired with a couple of actresses who have serious heat right now. Dakota Johnson and Adria Arjona. By the way, is it Adria Arjona or Ana de Armas? I can never tell. I've got to look at the cast list. But that said, an increasingly tangled web is woven when Ashley, played by Arjona, expresses her dissatisfaction with her marriage to easygoing good guy Carrie, played by Marvin, and she requests a divorce. So Marvin's character seeks solace, and so he turns to his smug longtime pal Paul, played by Covino, and to Paul's winsome wife Julie, played by Johnson. So staying with Paul and Julie at their waterfront home, Carrie finds out that they're in an open marriage and decides to try his luck with Julie when Paul is away. Oh my God.
Wow.
Genuine hilarity comes to the fore here. Carrie's unexpected reaction to Ashley's parade of lovers is a particular hoot. Covino and Marvin, they're not Hope and Crosby or Martin and Lewis, but they have the chemistry of a top-notch comedy team and are as good at scathing banter as they are at slapstick. That's right. There is slapstick in this movie. There is one knockout brawl between them that I almost couldn't believe I was seeing on screen. And by the way, I got to say, Dakota Johnson and Adria Arjona give as good as they get on the comedy front as they interact with the guys. Splitsville has plenty to say about love, loyalty, the perils and benefits of monogamy, and the adage that the grass always seems greener in your neighbor's yard. And it is funny. It is in select theaters.
Wow. You liked it.
I
Man.
did.
Well, that was a really great little run, I have to say. Is there anything on television that you'd like to mention in the streaming world? I don't want you to feel at all shortchanged.
I do, but
would you prefer another movie to review, or would you prefer a TV recommendation at this juncture?
I'm going to give you what I would call shorts.
Okay.
There's a movie called Lurker, which I totally was blown away by. It's very, very smart, very dark, very on the money, and it is from the writer-producer Alex Russell. It's his movie directorial debut. He used to work on The Bear, or has worked on The Bear and Beef, and this is all about a lanky, introverted guy who works in a Los Angeles boutique and ingratiates himself with this swaggering pop singer, Oliver, who enters the shop, and then insinuates himself into Oliver's entourage. It is twisted in the very best way. It's kind of got a postmodern all about Eve thing going on as this guy becomes more and more important to the entourage, but he's clearly messed up. And it's all about celebrity obsession. It's all about the perils of fame. I thought it was very, very cool. It is also out this Friday today in limited release, and I thought it was great. And, you know, I would be loath to not mention Eeny Meeny. It is a crazy, hyperactive, extremely watchable mix of off-the-wall heist film, gritty crime drama, and bad romance with Samara Weaving, who is pretty wonderful as Edie Meany, nicknamed Eeny. She's a badass getaway car driver who did this in her teens, but wants to get away from that former life, and she's in college, but she's forced to do one last job.
Oh, I see.
Because of the latest screw up by her scumbag ex-boyfriend, played by Carl Glusman. This is written and directed by Sean Simmons, and it features Andy Garcia as a crime boss, Steve Zahn as Dad Meany, Marshawn Lynch as another getaway driver, Randall Park, Mike O'Malley. I get the feeling everyone had a blast doing this, and it was infectious because, as disposable as it is, I had fun watching it. It's on Hulu. And finally, I'd beat myself up for not mentioning the documentary Devo, which is on Netflix. And it's hard to believe that this smart, sharp, funny Akron, Ohio-born rock band Devo has been around for 50 years. They combine Dadaist art concepts, politically and socially astute commentary, electronically jagged, deconstructed rock and roll. Their version of the Stones, I Can't Get No Satisfaction, is a marvel. And they have this darkly humorous look at humanity's progress and regress that is all too relevant in our own devolving here and now. It is directed by Chris Smith, and I thought it was great. Lots of archival footage, interview stuff with nominal leaders, Mark Mothersbaugh and Jerry Casale. And Mark, by the way, went on to a lot of fame as a composer for film and TV, and Jerry as a director of music videos and such. And I highly recommend this. And I ran into Mark this past Friday at his gallery.
Oh, wow. He's had a huge career since Devo.
Yes. Everything from Rugrats and Pee-wee's Big Adventure
to, as you say, major scoring of film.
To more recent stuff. And he is a wonderful guy. I've known the band for a long time, and he has a gallery called Mutmuz on Chungking Road in Los Angeles' Chinatown, and they're trying to revive the neighborhood after it was hit pretty hard by the pandemic. And I went to a gallery opening there for the works of the late Tomato Duplanty of the band Screamers, and Mark was there, and I had a great time with him. And coincidentally, this movie came out a few days later, and I highly recommend
You
Devo.
are a hipster doing your hipster stuff with Mark Mothersbaugh, and Devo is the movie that you recommend. It's a documentary. It's on Netflix. Check it out. Eeny Meeny is the crazy, hyperactive heist film on Hulu. You really like that?
I did.
Sounds like it was chock full of a lot of people we'll know.
It was fun and disposable, but fun.
Lurker, blown away. by this dark film, says Michael Snyder, the Mark Thompson Show.
Super smart. Theodore Pellerin as Matthew the leech, and Archie Madekwe from Saltburn as the pop star. Oh gosh, it was amazing. It's called Lurker, and again, it's
Directed by Alex Russell, was it?
Yeah, the guy who worked on The Bear and Beef.
It's in limited release. Splitsville, Dakota Johnson, and Adria Arjona, right?
Adria Arjona, yeah.
Adria, you say Adria, I say Adria. She says Adria, so I think you're right. Anyway, you think it's funny. They went for funny, and they got funny.
Oh, yeah, and this is the kind of movie I hope people seek out. Splitsville, super smart, and you're like, what, as you're watching it.
It's called Splitsville again. Honey Don't is the Ethan Coen offering. It's a crime comedy, the second of the lesbian noir movies. Lipstick lesbian Margaret Qualley finds dead bodies, possibly related to this cult leader who's played by Chris Evans in a local church. Aubrey Plaza's in it. Charlie Day is in it.
God, I just wish it had been better, dude.
He said it was okay, but it just kind of leaves you wanting
wanting
a rewrite, maybe, is what it was. Just one rewrite away from being something special, but not awful, just not really that great.
I just thought, what a waste of talent.
Relay is the New York City Fixer film. It's about this New York City fixer. Riz Ahmed plays Tom. He's using a messaging service. Lily James plays the client. As I recall, it feels as though the review was like a half hour ago, but it was like I thought you kind of liked it.
It was okay, and again, not as disappointing as Honey Don't, but it's not something I'd ever watch again, and I can't really endorse it wholeheartedly.
Not as disappointing as Honey Don't, says Michael Snyder.
Unlike Eden, which I led off with, which I did think people should seek out.
Eden is the Ron Howard offering. It is an adventure, true story, the 1930s story of people seeking paradise in a far-off place, but stuff really goes sideways. I mean, I know this story only because I'm familiar with it, but I'm really looking forward to the film. Jude Law, Vanessa Kirby, Daniel Brohl, the German actor, Sydney Sweeney. It is in theaters, and Michael liked it. Didn't feel like I was one of Ron Howard's very best, but he felt like this is a return to the good rhythm of Ron Howard movies that you like to see.
That is a fair and concise synopsis of my feelings.
Michael, I appreciate you giving of your time generously, coming in with your wild judgments about everything,
including you, including you,
and film offerings. You can read Michael, and I feel sometimes he's better appreciated when you're reading him.
How dare you?
You can read him at thevoicesf.org, thevoicesf.org, and he writes about things other than just movies and media.
But
he also writes about movies and media.
Yeah, this week it's about Alien Earth, a TV series I recommended last week.
I want to read about that, and I like just the way you write, so I'm going to enjoy that. He comes and goes on a rainbow. Bye-bye, Michael.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Well, I'll tell you something. This has been an educational show. I've learned a lot. There's been a lot of breaking news. We've covered it for you. The Bolton thing, the Jerome Powell thing.
We have more.
What's the latest?
They dropped the Ghislaine Maxwell interview, the transcript of the interview that she gave, or that she sat down with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. And as expected, she really goes up one side and down the other, praising Donald Trump. I think she's looking for a pardon.
Oh, this is what she said to Blanche, as you say. So yeah, this is the new this is the news story that is coming out of that. This is the one she offered in order to get transferred to that super minimum security, cushy yoga Pilates instructor filled detention center that was much better and is much better than the one she was in. So what did she say?
Likely not on tape before they started. Say nice things and you get a prize.
Yeah.
And that's what happened, because she basically said, I never saw Trump in any compromising position. He was, never I never saw him in his house. I never saw him in the massage area, never saw him in any way that would indicate that he was doing naughty things. And then she went further, and this is a direct quote from the transcript that was provided. Trump was always very cordial and very kind to me, and I just want to say that I admire his extraordinary achievement in becoming president now, and I like him, and I've always liked him. So that is the sum and substance of my entire relationship with him.
Wow, man.
Ghislaine Maxwell.
I mean,
and off she goes to the prison camp.
No surprises, and she'll get that pardon when he, probably at the end of his term. I would think he'll wait that long, but you know.
I mean, it's such a glowing, the whole transcript is so glowing and exactly what they were looking for from her that it's clearly, you know, manufactured or, yeah.
She was convicted of perjury. She's a known perjurer, a known liar. And so she's, you know, birds of a feather flocking together. You know, liars got to lie. And it just, you know, we know from victims, alleged victims of interactions around Jeffrey Epstein, that there likely was more going on. So does anyone trust her opinion? Ask Tammy. There you go. This from Europe. Nadia Yvette Chambers with €2. Come on, Nadia. Hallo aus Berlin. From Berlin. Masked men take people equals forced disappear. Exactly. We are disappearing people in the U.S. There is no question about that. Masked men taking people off the street, throwing them into vans, and then they're lost to the ether. And this is where we are now. And it's immensely concerning. Thank you, Nadia. And a big shout out to everybody in the European nations.
Big shout out.
Yeah. I'm the world of a pedophile and pedophile enabler is gold. Not, says Resist Evolve. Yeah. Her pants are on fire. People not believing Ghislaine in our crew. Still lying, says Tammy. Yeah. Well, that is our show for this week. We ask you and encourage you to share the show. It costs you nothing to do that across Facebook or your social media. Turn other people on to what's going on. Share the discount code at Coachella Valley Coffee with those who might enjoy a shot of tea, coffee, and all the other offerings there at Coachella Valley Coffee. Check out the merch. Those are all things you can do over the weekend. Albert, thank you for another mediocre job. Very, very well done. Yeah. And Kim, thank you for always stepping up. You can find Kim on the After Party Live. She does a show after this one, and there's no politics in it, so you might like that.
Not at all.
For now, the great Shadow Stevens takes us out.
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. And
Out of time. Bye-bye.
Out of time. Gotta run. Have a good weekend. Talk Monday. Until then, bye-bye.